evening. So I'm going to walk you through my individual process here for pulling coffee from a Pavoni EPC-8. As you can see, this is a Millennium model. The Millenniums typically have a few different changes, but the most noticeable one is the group head here actually is a different shape than the pre-Millenniums. It's got, kind of a longer, wider group head, supposedly maintains temperature a little bit better. So again, this is kind of my process. This may or may not work for you. Obviously, it's going to depend upon what kind of beans you're using, what kind of grinder you're using. For tonight, I'm going to be using some beans from just my local roastery that I have. Specifically for my Pavoni, I have a Rocky, Rancilio Rocky here that I use. Right now, I have it set to about 10. Seems to be about the best adjustment that I can make. It took me a few tries to get this pretty dialed in, but anywhere from, I'd say, about 12 down to about 8 seems to be about the sweet spot for manual lever. So the first thing you're going to do is add a little bit of water. Now, you've got your water indicator here, and as you can see, I'm about halfway full right now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill this with some water up to the full indicator. Really, you want to keep your Pavoni probably about 3/4 full, probably to about there. You get more steam volume that way. It just seems to pull a better shot. But what I do is I want to put a little bit of water through the group head here, and I want to put some steam through the steam one, so I always give myself a little bit of breathing room to start. So first thing we'll do is we'll just unscrew this, and I'm doing this all with one hand, so if I drop this, it's not going to surprise me. And I happen to have some water. This is just filtered water. I don't use distilled or anything like that. If you really wanted to, you could use distilled water. Here it gives a better shot. I'm not too terribly convinced. But the one thing it doesn't do is leave scale on the inside of your tank. So if you don't like descaling your tank, maybe that's a reason to use it. I'll go ahead and screw this on. Hand tight. Don't really have to crank it down that much because you got a seal there that's going to help out with this. Make sure your steam wand is closed. Make sure that's down. You don't have anything hanging off this. One thing I would say, move these, is when you're storing any espresso machine, you want to make sure that your portafilter is up inside the group head loosely. I've always been told that to preserve the seals in there, you want to make sure that your group head is loosely, or your portafilter is loosely connected to the group head. So just put it in there, give it a nice little knock over, and you should be fine. I've had this for approximately 2 years, and I haven't noticed any wear on my seals, and I've actually taken this apart before, so I think we're in pretty good shape. So just go ahead, turn her on, and what we're going to do is we're going to wait a little bit. Now this is Italian, and they have to do things a little bit differently. Here in the States, if this green light was on, we'd think that, hey, we're ready to go. Well, that's not the case here. This just means that we're warming up. And the minute that green line turns off is when you're ready, when you're up to temp, when you're up to pressure. Because this doesn't go by temperature, it goes by pressure. And so there's a pressure stat in here that goes up into the tank. So once that pressure stat has been tripped, that's going to turn off, and we'll come back. But we're going to let this thing heat up. We want to make sure that this, that this heats up, that we get a little bit of heat into the group head. We don't need to have a whole lot into the group head to start. We're going to get a lot of that just kind of by pouring water through it anyways, so not a huge deal. But go get yourself, woken up for the day. Go get wash your face, do whatever you want to. But we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, welcome back. So, it's been approximately 5 minutes or so since I started this up, and as you can see, our friendly little green light indicator is off, which indicates that we're good to go, because You like making things a little bit different from us Americans. So at this point, you think, hey, you know, I'm ready to pull a shot. I'm ready to rock. You know, I can pull some great coffee out of this thing. Not so fast. So the first thing is, I can touch this group head. I probably shouldn't be able to. It's a little warm right now, but it needs a little more heat. Now the heat from the boiler gets transferred into the group head through all these metal connections here. So we're going to give that a little bit more time to heat up. But the reason I turned this back on, as I wanted to show you, is there's one thing that we want to do prior to everything coming back up to temp and us wanting to pull a shot, and that is we're going to let off some false pressure. So false pressure is basically, you know, we've got some colder air inside here. We got some stuff that isn't steam. It isn't really contributing to, you know, the actual pressure. We're getting a bad reading off of the pressure stat in here. So what I'm going to do is open up the steam wand and just let off a little bit of steam. Just for a little bit. And we'll close it back up again. And as you can see, our green line indicator is back on, saying that we are not up to temperature and we need to wait for it to come back off. So it is back off now. We're back up to pressure, but I'm going to let this thing roll for a couple minutes more because I want this group head to be nice and hot. I should be reeling in pain right now from doing that. It's not quite up to the temperature that I want to see. So let it roll for a little bit while longer. If you haven't noticed, this isn't a terribly fast process. To be honest with you, if you bought one of these machines and you're expecting fast espresso, you're probably in for a world of disappointment. What I do is I actually have an AeroPress. And this is my first cup of coffee. So I'll make my first cup of coffee using the AeroPress while this thing is coming up to temperature. So this wakes me up. This gets me feeling good. So we'll be back in a minute. Okay, we're back. So at this point, what we've done is we've let off the false pressure out of our tank by opening up the steam wand. We have lit our group head, come up to temperature. Yeah, it's hot, would you believe it or not? And as we can tell, our nice Italian indicator light here is off, meaning we're good to go. So it's time to pull a shot. Now I tried to do a version of this where I was grinding the coffee for your benefit, but that's not going to work because I only have one hand, and I need two hands to operate this thing. One for the switch there at the bottom, and one to hold the basket underneath the schnoz there. So what I've done here is I've ground out 8 grams of coffee. You know, for my machine, at this grind with this coffee, 7 to 8 grams seems to be about right. So as you can see, this is one problem that the Rocky has, is that it creates these pea-sized clumps of coffee. And some people really don't like that, but you know, I haven't really had any problems with it. It hasn't been a big deal for me, so I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to give it a couple taps on the wood here. Take my tamp, press down evenly, give it a nice firm push. I usually give it a twist, but I only have one hand, so no twist for you today. There we go. Nice and even, you know, within reason. I'm not too picky. What we'll do, bring it over here. Now, one thing I'm going to do real quick that I haven't done yet is you'll notice that we're still way up above the fill line. You know, it's not completely full. I mean, if it was completely full, I'd have some big problems, but you know, it's probably just hiding up above this nut here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let some water through the group head here, not only to get the pressure at the group head the way I want it to be, but also to get the group head to the appropriate temperature, get a little bit hotter. So we'll just lift this up. We'll just let some water flow out. Maybe a little bit more. There. Now I can see my water level indicator, and that's fine. And again, that's off. So I'm still good at good pressure. But now I've got a little bit of water through here. I've flushed out any coffee grains, gotten this up to the temperature it needs to be, and I've gotten good steam coming through there. So I'm going to go ahead and take my portafilter off. put my puck in there. Screw it into place. Now don't crank down on this thing. I mean, I've seen people, you know, they'll sit there and they'll just crank on this thing until it's all the way back here. That's just killing your seals. There's a rubber gasket up in there. You know, it's a little O-ring, and if you're really pressing down hard, you're not making that O-ring work, and in fact you're damaging it. So, you know, kind of solid, but it doesn't need to go all the way. So don't crank the heck out of it. And what I've got here is just two simple shot glasses, because again, I don't like spending money where I don't have to, just to catch my shot. Now you could, if you wanted to, take this off and replace it with a single, but you know, I haven't bought one of those yet. I'd like to, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up our lever here, and I'm going to hold it in position for about 10 seconds. The idea is that I should start to see coffee dripping into these containers in 10 seconds. If I don't see it, I'm going to start bringing this lever down anyways. It's not required that you see coffee dripping down there, but what is required is the amount of pressure that you're going to exert upon this. Now, I've seen on YouTube, I've seen plenty of demonstration videos where somebody puts their entire weight into this thing. Bad idea, and I'll tell you why that's a bad idea. Number one, you know, that's way too muddy of a grind. But the big thing is there's another seal right here, and I don't know if you can tell, but this is a seam that's held on by two bolts on either side. If you start really cranking down on this thing with your entire body weight, it's going to bend this entire assembly here, and all of a sudden that seal there isn't going to do you much good. You'll get a bitter shot, and you're going to ruin your $1,000 machine here. So be gentle to it. I always say the appropriate amount of pressure is, you know, probably a little bit more than you would have just, you know, kind of putting your weight on it. You know, putting the weight of your arm onto it. It's going to be more pressure than that. It's going to be enough that if you hold the handle like this, with the butt end of this into the soft of your palm, you're going to feel that butt end, and it's going to, you know, it's going to exert a little bit of pressure on the palm of your hand. So anyways, let's lift this up, and we're going to hold it for 10 seconds. 1 1,000. Oh, we just heard the water. 2 1,000. 3 1,000. 4 1,000. 1,000. 6 1,000. 7 1,000. 8 1,000. Still none. 10 1,000. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring the lever down, and getting that nice color there. Nice honeyed color. Doesn't blonde out too quickly. And we get about, these machines are made to pull about 1 to 1.5 ounces, and that is about 1.5 ounces right there. The pressure was not all that much. I mean, it was just about the weight of my arm to push down on this, and I still got perfect crema out of it. I guarantee you this is going to be a good shot. So you don't really have to crank down all that hard. So I'm going to go ahead and take our shot. We'll put that off to the side. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is, you know, these machines are all about keeping them clean. First thing to do is go ahead and remove your basket. Another way of telling if your grind is too fine is if you remove your basket shortly after pulling your shot and you get a coffee explosion, then your grind is probably a little too fine or you're using too much coffee. You know, and that's in addition to having to really bear down on the lever. So a couple things here. I mean, we can go ahead, you know, we can rinse off this piece. I'm not going to do that right now because I'd have to move too much. But what I am going to do is we're just going to wipe down our shower screen here. We get just a little bit of junk off of it. You can use one of these brushes, but, you know, quite frankly, I've found as long as you don't have too many coffee explosions, you maybe need to use these, oh, I don't know, maybe once a month, just to clear out the groove around the O seal. But yeah, you don't really need it. But the next thing you want to do is lift this up and pour some water through it. And that just gets rid of any fine particulates that are in the shower screen, anything that might have backed up between the shower screen and the piston. It's just going to push that on out. And I've done this like this for about 2 years. Haven't serviced this machine, but last week I decided to take the shower screen off just to take a peek at the piston, and the piston was almost completely clean. So, you know, just throw some water through it when you're done. The other thing is, and this is why I always keep a wet rag handy, is your steam wand here. If you're steaming milk and you're dipping this into your milk, number one, you're going to have a lot of milk crusties along the outside of your steam wand here. So it helps to have an actual fabric rag to kind of clean it off. Make sure you get the tip there. And then just put some steam through it. And all that really does is that gets rid of any of the milk on the outside with the rag, and then any of the milk on the inside with the steam. And that should keep this thing going pretty clean. So when you're done, just turn her off, let her sit. If you absolutely positively need to get more water in there ASAP, just turn your nozzle up, open it up, and let it sit. Do not, under any circumstances, open this while there is pressure in there. I speak from experience. Even if you think it's all gone, it is not, and you will get a nasty burn. I don't know if you can see that, but that is a steam burn. And I got that because I was a dumbass and I didn't listen to my own advice. So make sure you bleed off all the steam before you put more water in, or just let it come completely down from temperature. Up to you. Anyways, hope this is helpful. Thanks.